"I finally found you," whispered the Mafia boss to a poor single mom after 10 years apart. "Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main characters. Emma Johnson had been through a lot in her life, but nothing could have prepared her for this night. She was just a single mother, trying to balance life as a waitress while raising her son alone. After 10 years of struggling, she thought she had left her past behind. But fate had a different plan. Emma had just served another round of drinks at the charity gala when she felt a sudden shiver down her spine. It was as though someone was watching her, and she couldn't shake the feeling. She glanced across the room, her eyes scanning the sea of well-dressed guests. That's when she saw him. Standing at the far end of the ballroom, his tall, imposing figure stood out among the crowd. Vincent Moretti, the Mafia boss. Emma froze. The world seemed to stop for a moment as their eyes locked. It had been 10 years since she last saw him, and yet, the intensity of his gaze hadn't changed. She could still remember the night they met, the night that changed everything. Vincent had been a stranger then, someone who seemed to appear out of nowhere, and now, here he was, standing in front of her once again. But the years had not been kind to her. Emma had become hardened, weathered by the challenges of raising her son alone. She wasn't the same young woman she once was, and she certainly didn't want anything to do with the dangerous world that Vincent represented. But as he slowly made his way toward her, the distance between them closed with every step. Emma's heart raced. "I finally found you," Vincent whispered as he stopped in front of her, his voice sending a shiver through her body. The words felt like a weight, like something she couldn't escape. Emma felt. Her throat tightened, and she struggled to find her voice. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her words barely above a whisper. Vincent's eyes softened, just for a moment, before his usual cold, calculating demeanor returned. "You're mine now," he said with a quiet intensity. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to run, to escape, but she knew that wasn't an option. She had been found, and there was no going back. Vincent Moretti had never stopped looking for her. 10 years apart had only strengthened his determination. As the night unfolded, Emma realized that the past she thought she had left behind had caught up with her in ways she couldn't have imagined. She had no choice but to face the consequences of the choices she made long ago. And as Vincent led her away from the gala, Emma couldn't help but wonder if she was walking into a new life, or if she was about to lose herself completely in the dark world of the Mafia. Vincent's presence was overwhelming, a suffocating reminder of the life Emma had fought so hard to escape. She hadn't seen him in 10 years, and yet the weight of his gaze was familiar, as if no time had passed at all. He stood so close, his voice a low whisper that sent shivers down her spine. "You're mine now." The words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning, and for a moment, Emma felt as though the world had narrowed down to just the two of them. She swallowed hard, her heart racing in her chest. She had no idea what Vincent wanted, but she knew one thing for sure. This wasn't a chance encounter. He had come for her, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. "I don't belong to anyone," she said, her voice shaking slightly. She pulled her hand back from where it had been caught in his, but he didn't let go. Instead, he tightened his grip, just enough to remind her of his power. "You belong to me," he repeated, his tone calm, but unyielding. Emma's chest tightened. She had no idea what to say, how to fight him. The life she had built, the quiet, simple life she'd found as a single mother, felt fragile now, like it could crumble at any moment. She glanced around the ballroom, searching for a way out, but it was impossible. The crowd had parted for Vincent, as if they knew who he was, what he was capable of. Everyone avoided looking directly at him, as if afraid to make eye contact. He was a man who commanded attention without saying a word, a man who controlled everything in his orbit. The realization hit Emma hard. She wasn't just dealing with a powerful man. She was dealing with a force of nature. "Please," Emma whispered, the words slipping from her lips before she could stop it. "I need to go. I can't be part of this." Vincent's expression softened, just a little, but it didn't reach his eyes. He didn't seem angry, just resolute. "You already are," he said. And you can't leave. Not anymore. He took a step closer, his presence overwhelming, filling the space between them. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had thought she had left all of this behind. Her past, the dangerous world that Vincent had been a part of. She had built a life for herself and her son, one where she didn't have to look over her shoulder. But now, standing in front of Vincent again, she realized how fragile that illusion had been. I have a life, she said, her voice a little stronger now, though the doubt still lingered. A son, a future. You can't just come in and take you back? Vincent interrupted, his voice steady, almost kind. Yes, I can. Emma stared at him, searching his face for some sign of the man she once knew. But all she saw was the cold, calculating figure that stood before her. The man who had disappeared from her life without a trace, and now had returned, not just for her, but to reclaim what he believed was his. The man who had built an empire from nothing, who ruled with an iron fist, who had never stopped looking for her. You don't know anything about me, she said, her voice trembling slightly. You don't know what I've been through. Vincent's gaze softened, but only for a moment. I know everything about you, Emma. I've always known, and I've always been watching. His words sent a chill down her spine. How had he known? How had he kept track of her all these years? She had tried so hard to put the past behind her, to build something better for herself and her son. But now, in this moment, with Vincent standing before her, she realized that she couldn't escape it. She couldn't escape him. Emma felt her knees weaken, her mind racing as she tried to process what was happening. She didn't want to be here, didn't want to be caught in this dangerous web Vincent had spun around her. But there was no denying the pull he had on her. She had tried to leave him behind, but somehow, he had found her. And now, there was nowhere left to run. Vincent's words echoed in Emma's mind as she stood there, frozen by the weight of his presence. He had always had that effect on her, a mix of fear and attraction that she couldn't explain. But this time, it wasn't just the past that haunted her. It was the reality of her present, the life she had built with her son, that was slipping away from her grasp. You can't just waltz back into my life and expect things to be the same, she finally said, her voice trembling but firm. Vincent's gaze softened just a fraction, but the power in his eyes remained unshaken. I'm not here to change everything, Emma. I'm here to protect you. You've always been mine. The words hit her like a punch to the gut, but there was a strange comfort in them too. A twisted sense of security, as if she had no choice but to trust him. But trust was a hard thing to give when someone had left you without a word, when they had disappeared from your life without a trace, only to reappear a decade later. I don't need your protection, she said, shaking her head. I've been fine without you. I've built a life. Vincent's expression darkened slightly, and Emma could see the flicker of something behind his eyes, a reminder of who he truly was. A man who didn't just live by the rules of society, but by his own set of laws. You think you're fine? Do you think I haven't been watching? I know everything about you, Emma. I know what you've been through. And I know that, deep down, you've never really been free. His words were like a cold wind against her skin. She felt exposed, as if he had peeled away all the layers of her. Defenses in an instant. I don't need you to remind me of my past, she snapped. I've survived it. I've made it this far without you. Vincent took a slow step forward, his voice low and steady. You've survived, yes. But at what cost? You've been alone. You've fought battles no one should fight alone. You think that's freedom? I've been trying to find you, Emma. Not to control you, but to make sure you're safe. To make sure nothing happens to you or your son. Emma's breath hitched at the mention of her son. He was the only thing that mattered now. The reason she had fought so hard to stay strong. She had never wanted this life for him. Never wanted him to be dragged into the world she had left behind. You don't get to make decisions for me, she said, her voice breaking. Not anymore. I've kept him away from all of this. You're not going to take that away. Vincent's gaze softened again, but there was still that intensity in his eyes. I'm not here to take anything from you, Emma. I'm here to offer you a choice. You can keep running, keep fighting this alone, or you can let me help you. Let me keep you both safe. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Emma's mind raced as she tried to process everything. She had built this life, this fragile world, and she couldn't let it crumble. Not for Vincent. Not for anyone. But the fear in her chest, the weight of his presence, made her wonder if she had a choice at all. What do you want from me? She whispered, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Vincent stepped closer, his presence filling the space between them. I want you, Emma. I want to protect you. And I want you to understand that this life, this world we're in, it's never going to let you go. Not until you're mine again. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she felt the weight of his words settle over her. There was no escaping Vincent Moretti. No escaping the life he had brought her back into. And as much as she wanted to fight it, she couldn't deny the truth in his words. He had found her, and there was no going back. Emma felt her heart racing as she stood there, facing Vincent, the man who had once been a part of her life, now a distant memory that had come rushing back like a storm. His words, his presence, it all felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. She had spent 10 years building a life for herself and her son, a life that was far from the chaos of Vincent's world, yet here she was, trapped in it once again. She couldn't escape. She could run, but she knew he would find her. He always did. You've made your choice, Vincent said, his voice low, almost gentle. You can fight me, but in the end, you'll realize you need me. I'm the only one who can keep you safe. Emma wanted to yell, to tell him how wrong he was, how she didn't need him or anyone else to protect her. She had made it this far on her own, with nothing but her strength and determination to get by. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her hesitate, a truth she wasn't ready to face. She had always been drawn to Vincent, in a way that scared her. He was powerful, commanding, and there was something in him that made her feel like she didn't have a choice. She had always resisted that pull, tried to keep him out of her life. But now, standing before him, she felt that familiar tug again, a pull that was impossible to ignore. I'm not like you, Emma said, her voice firm, but the doubt in her heart was unmistakable. I don't belong in your world. I fought too hard to get out of it. Vincent didn't flinch. He didn't argue. Instead, he stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. You never really left it, Emma. It's always been a part of you. You can pretend all you want, but I know who you are. I know what you've been through. His words hit her like a wave, and she struggled to keep herself composed. She didn't want to admit it, didn't want to acknowledge the truth he was speaking, but deep down, she knew he was right. She had always been a part of this world, even if she had tried to bury it. Vincent reached out, gently cupping her face in his hand. His touch was warm, but there was a hardness to it, a possessiveness that sent a chill through her. You're mine, he whispered, and I'm not letting you go again. Emma wanted to pull away, to fight him, but something in his words, in his touch, made her freeze. She didn't know what it was, but she felt it. The weight of his presence, the undeniable connection between them. She had always known that he could control her, could break her if he wanted to. And yet, a part of her couldn't deny that there was a strange comfort in that power. She wasn't sure if it was fear or something else entirely. I can't go back to that life, Emma said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I won't. Vincent's expression softened, but only for a moment. You don't have to go back to the life you had. I'm offering you something different, something better. A life where you and your son are protected, where you don't have to worry about anything anymore. Emma's heart twisted. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that he could give her a better life, that he could take away the fear and the constant struggle. But she had learned the hard way that nothing in Vincent's world came without a cost. What's the catch? She asked, her voice steady despite the flutter of uncertainty in her chest. Vincent smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was a smile that spoke of secrets and power, of a world she wasn't sure she wanted to be a part of. The catch is that you'll never be free of me. Not now, not ever. But I'll make sure you have everything you need. Emma's stomach twisted at his words. She wasn't sure if she should be afraid or relieved. All she knew was that Vincent had a hold on her, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape it. I'll think about it, she said, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew they were hollow. She had already made her choice. She always had. Vincent didn't reply, but his gaze told her everything she needed to know. He knew she would come around. He always did. The next few days passed in a blur of confusion and tension. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that her life was spiraling out of control, slipping away from her hands. Like sand, she had tried to ignore Vincent, to push him away, but his presence loomed over her like a shadow, always there, always watching. Every time she stepped outside, she felt like she was being followed, like there was no escaping his world. He had warned her, and though she wanted to deny it, she knew deep down that he was right. She could never go back to the life she had built for herself. It had always been fragile, and Vincent's return had shattered it. Her thoughts kept drifting back to their conversation, to his words about protection, about keeping her and her son safe. She had heard those promises before, from men who didn't follow through. But Vincent, he wasn't like anyone else. The problem was, she didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. She had no choice but to meet him again. She had to face him, to make a decision about what she was going to do with her life. The time for pretending was over. When she arrived at the place Vincent had arranged for them to meet, a secluded park just outside the city, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. It was quiet, peaceful even, but the tension in the air made it feel like a trap. Vincent was already waiting, his back to her as he stood near a fountain, his broad shoulders tense with expectation. She could feel the pull of him, the magnetism that had always been there, drawing her in despite herself. "Emma," he said, without turning around. His voice was low and smooth, just as she remembered. "You're here. I knew you would come." She stood still, her heart pounding in her chest. "I didn't come to make a deal, Vincent," she said, trying to sound strong. "I came to make it clear. I won't be a part of your world. Not again." He turned to face her, his eyes cold but steady. "You don't have a choice," he said simply. "You're already a part of it, whether you want to be or not." Emma's fists clenched at her sides, her breath coming in short bursts. She wanted to argue, to fight him, but there was a part of her that knew he was right. She was already tangled in his web. The question was, how far would she let him pull her in? "You think I don't have a choice?" she asked, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. "I've made my choice, Vincent. I've spent 10 years fighting for my freedom. I won't let you take that away from me." He took a step toward her, his gaze softening, just a little. "I'm not here to take anything from you," he said quietly. "I'm here to protect you, to help you. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Emma felt a surge of emotion rise in her chest, a mix of resentment and something else, something she wasn't ready to confront. She couldn't deny the comfort his words offered, the sense of safety that came with being under his protection. But she had learned the hard way that nothing in Vincent's world came without a cost. "You don't know what it's like," she said, her voice breaking. "To be alone, to fight every day just to keep my son safe. I don't need your protection. I need my freedom." Vincent's eyes darkened, the familiar intensity returning. "Freedom," he repeated. "Is that what you think you have? You've been living in fear, Emma. You've been hiding. You've been running. And now, you think you can keep running from me?" She recoiled at the harshness in his words, but he wasn't wrong. She had spent so much of her life running from the past, from the life that Vincent had been a part of. And now, it seemed like there was no place left to hide. "I don't want this," she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "I don't want to be a part of this world again." Vincent took another step forward, his expression softening once again. "You don't have to want it, Emma. You just have to accept it. I've always been a part of your world, and you've always been a part of mine. We can fight it, or we can face it together." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She had no idea what to do, no idea how to fix this. The only thing she knew was that Vincent was right. There was no running from this, no hiding, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't ignore the pull he had on her, the way he made her feel like she didn't have a choice, even when she thought she did. Emma stood there, feeling the weight of Vincent's words pressed down on her chest like a heavy stone. She wanted to fight back, to argue that she didn't need his protection, that she was capable of taking care of herself and her son. But as his eyes locked onto hers, the unwavering intensity of his gaze made her doubt her own resolve. She had fought so long, so hard, to escape the world he represented, to create a life where she didn't have to look over her shoulder. But now, with him standing so close, the world she had fought to build felt fragile, like a house of cards ready to collapse. "You're wrong," she said softly, almost to herself, her voice shaking with uncertainty. "I don't need you. I've built a life. I've made it this far without you." Vincent didn't move, his expression unchanged. "You've survived, yes," he said quietly, "but you haven't truly lived. Not like this." Emma's heart raced at his words. What did he mean? She had fought for everything she had, and she had made it on her own. She didn't need anyone, especially not someone like Vincent, to come back into her life and make her doubt everything she had worked for. But deep down, she couldn't deny the part of her that was afraid of losing everything, of being dragged back into a life that had almost destroyed her. She had spent 10 years running from that life, and now Vincent was standing before her, offering her something she wasn't sure she wanted. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've told you what I want," Vincent replied, his voice calm but firm. "I want you. I want to protect you, to keep you safe." His words felt like a trap, but Emma couldn't ignore the sense of security they offered. She had spent so many years in fear, wondering if every knock at the door was someone coming to take everything from her. Vincent was offering her protection, safety in a world that had always felt dangerous. But was that enough? Could she really trust him? She shook her head, as if trying to clear the thoughts that were clouding her judgment. "I don't need your protection," she said, her voice growing stronger. "I'm fine on my own. I've always been fine." Vincent stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "You've always been alone, Emma. And that's not the same as being fine." She wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't know her, didn't know what she had been through. But the truth was, he did. He knew more about her than she was comfortable with, and that knowledge made her feel vulnerable. She had spent so long hiding from the past, pretending it didn't exist, but Vincent was the past she couldn't escape. "I don't want this life," Emma whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "I don't want to be part of your world." Vincent reached out, his hand gently brushing her arm. "It's not your choice anymore," he said, his voice soft but unwavering. "You've always been a part of this world, and whether you like it or not, it's never going to let you go." Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. She couldn't escape him. She couldn't escape the life that had always followed her, no matter how far she ran. And for the first time, she realized that maybe she didn't want to. Maybe she didn't want to keep running anymore. The weight of his words settled over her like a heavy blanket, suffocating and yet strangely comforting. "What are you asking me to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Vincent stepped even closer, until there was only a breath of space between them. "I'm not asking you to do anything," he said quietly. "I'm offering you a choice. You can keep running, keep fighting this alone, or you can trust me. You can let me take care of you, take care of both of you." Emma felt the pull of his words, the magnetic force that had always drawn her to him. She had spent so long fighting against it, fighting against him, but now, with everything on the line, she wasn't sure she could keep fighting anymore. "I can't do this," she said, shaking her head. "I can't go back to that life." Vincent's expression softened, and for the first time, Emma saw something other than the cold, calculating man who had once been a stranger in her life. She saw vulnerability, a glimpse of the man he had once been before everything changed. "You don't have to go back, Emma," he said quietly. "I'm not asking you to. I'm offering you a chance at something different. A chance at a life where you don't have to do everything alone." Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions crashing through her. She wanted to say no, wanted to run as far away as possible. But part of her, the part that had always been afraid, the part that had always felt alone, wanted to say yes. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to believe that there was something better waiting for her. But could she? Could she really trust Vincent Moretti after all this time? Emma's mind raced as Vincent's words echoed in her thoughts, each one pulling her deeper into the world she had tried so hard to escape. Could she really trust him? Could she allow herself to fall back into this dangerous, unpredictable life? She had spent so many years building a safe haven for her son, a life where she could protect him from the kind of people who would destroy everything in their path. Yet here Vincent was, standing before her, offering her a way out, a chance to live a life where she didn't have to fight alone. She wanted to reject it. She wanted to turn away and run, but something about his calm, assured presence made her hesitate. "I don't want to be part of this world again," she said, trying to steady her voice, though the doubt she felt was evident. Vincent watched her for a long moment, his dark eyes studying her with an intensity that made her feel like he could see right through her. "You're already part of it," he said softly. "You always have been. You can fight it, but you won't win. This life, it's in your blood. It's who you are." Emma shook her head, taking a step back, feeling the familiar walls she had spent so long building start to crack. "I'm not like you," she whispered, as though saying it aloud would make it true. I've made my own way. I've worked for everything I have. I'm not part of your world, and I don't want to be. Vincent's expression softened, but there was a quiet understanding in his eyes that unnerved her. You don't have to want it, Emma, he said. But this world has always been there for you. You just didn't see it. His words hit her like a punch to the gut. She had always tried to convince herself that she was different, that she could outrun the past. But deep down, she knew he was right. Her past was never far behind, and no matter how much she tried to build a life for herself, it was always there, lurking in the shadows. She had tried so hard to protect her son from it, to shield him from the dangers that had always surrounded her. And yet, here she was, standing face to face with the man who had been a part of that darkness, the man who had always known exactly where to find her. She wanted to resist him, to walk away and never look back, but the pull of his words, the weight of his presence, was too strong. She had always been drawn to Vincent, and no matter how much she hated it, she couldn't ignore the connection between them. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Vincent took a step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. I want you, Emma, he said, his voice quiet but firm. I want to protect you. I want to give you a life where you don't have to fight every day just to survive. I want to keep you safe, to make sure you and your son are never in danger again. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. She didn't know what to believe anymore. She didn't know if she could trust Vincent, but she couldn't deny the part of her that wanted to, the part that had always longed for the safety he promised. I don't know if I can trust you, she said, her voice shaking with uncertainty. I don't know if I can trust anything about this. Vincent reached out, his hand brushing her arm gently. You don't have to trust me yet, he said softly. But you will. In time, you'll see that I'm here to protect you, to help you. I'm not going anywhere, Emma, and neither are you. The finality of his words settled over her like a heavy blanket. She knew he meant it. He wasn't going to let her walk away, not now. And as much as she wanted to fight him, a part of her, a part she didn't want to acknowledge, didn't want to let go of the promise he was offering. She had always wanted to feel safe, to know that she didn't have to face the world alone. And maybe, just maybe, Vincent was the answer. But at what cost? She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of deception, any hint that he wasn't who he claimed to be. But all she saw was a man who had come for her, a man who was determined to bring her into his world, whether she was ready or not. And for the first time in a long time, Emma wondered if she ever really had a choice. Emma stood there, her heart heavy with the decision that loomed before her. Vincent's words echoed in her mind, filling her thoughts with doubts and uncertainties. Could she really trust him? Could she allow herself to fall back into the life she had worked so hard to escape? She had spent years building a future for her son, a life where they were safe, far away from the world Vincent represented. But now, standing here with him, she realized how fragile that world was. The walls she had built around her heart had always been thin, and Vincent had a way of breaking through them without even trying. She looked at him, his expression unreadable, his eyes piercing through her like they always had. He wasn't going to let her go. Not now, not ever. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know if I can go back to that life. Vincent's gaze softened, but there was still that undeniable determination in his eyes. You don't have to go back to the life you had, Emma. I'm not asking you to. I'm offering you a chance at something different. Something better. His words hung in the air between them, tempting her, pulling at the part of her that longed for safety, for protection. But she had been down this road before, and it always ended the same way, with betrayal, with heartbreak. She couldn't risk it again. I can't just forget everything I've built, she said, the words coming out, more forcefully than she intended. I can't just walk away from my life, from my son, because you say it will be better. Vincent stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You're not walking away from anything, Emma. You're walking toward a life where you don't have to do everything alone. A life where you and your son are safe. Where you don't have to worry about the things that have kept you up at night. Emma's chest tightened as she fought back the tears threatening to spill. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that there was a way out. That she could have everything she had ever dreamed of without the constant fear. But the fear was still there, lurking in the back of her mind, whispering that Vincent's world wasn't the answer. It never had been. I can't just give in, she said, shaking her head. I can't let you make decisions for me. I've spent too long making my own choices, fighting for my independence. I won't let that go. Vincent's expression shifted, a flicker of frustration crossing his face before he masked it with his usual calm demeanor. You think you're independent, Emma? You think you've built this life on your own? You've always had help. You just didn't know it. Emma flinched at his words, the truth in them cutting deeper than she expected. She had always prided herself on being strong, on doing everything herself. But now, in the face of Vincent's words, she realized how much of her strength had been a lie. She had always been running, always hiding from the past, never truly confronting it. And now, the past was standing right in front of her, demanding to be acknowledged. I'm not asking you to give up your independence, Vincent said, his voice gentle now. I'm asking you to trust me. To trust that I can give you the life you've always wanted, the life you deserve. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity in them, the truth that she had always known but never wanted to face. Vincent wasn't just offering her protection. He was offering her a chance to live, to stop running, to stop pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. I can't promise you everything will be perfect, Vincent continued. But I can promise you that I will never let anything happen to you. I will protect you, Emma, and I will make sure you and your son are safe. Emma stood there, torn between the life she had fought for and the life Vincent was offering. She wanted to say no, to walk away and never look back. But something inside her, something deep down, told her that walking away wasn't an option anymore. She had spent too long running, too long hiding from the past. It was time to face it, to face him. I don't know if I can trust you, she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. Vincent reached out, his hand gently resting on her arm. You don't have to trust me right away, he said softly. But you will. In time, you'll see that I'm here to help you, to make things right. Emma felt the warmth of his touch, the comfort it offered, and for the first time in a long time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was the answer. She had spent so long fighting alone, but maybe it was time to let someone else fight for her. Maybe it was time to stop running. She looked at Vincent, seeing the man he was, the man he had always been. And for the first time in 10 years, she didn't feel like she was alone. She felt like she had a choice. And that choice, no matter how difficult, was to trust him. To trust that this time, things would be different. Emma stood there, the weight of the decision pressing down on her chest. She had made her choice, but it didn't feel like a choice at all. It felt like a surrender. The world she had fought so hard to escape was slowly closing in around her, and she could feel the invisible threads of Vincent's influence tightening around her. She glanced at him, his eyes steady and unwavering, and for the first time in years, she felt the sting of vulnerability. She had tried so hard to protect herself and her son from this world. She had built something, no matter how fragile, something she could call her own. But now, standing before Vincent, she couldn't help but wonder if she had ever truly escaped. I can't keep running, she whispered, more to herself than to him. Vincent's gaze softened ever so slightly, but there was still a hint of something fierce behind his eyes. No, you don't have to run anymore, he said, his voice low and steady. You don't have to face it alone. Emma swallowed hard, the words stirring something inside her that she didn't want to acknowledge. The truth was, she didn't want to be alone anymore. She didn't want to keep fighting every day just to survive. She wanted to feel safe, to feel like there was a chance at something more. She had spent so long pretending she didn't need anyone, that she was strong enough to handle everything on her own. But deep down, she knew she couldn't keep up the facade forever. She couldn't keep pretending that she didn't crave the kind of protection Vincent was offering. I don't know what to do, Emma admitted, her voice trembling with the weight of her confession. Vincent reached out, his hand brushing against hers in a gesture that was surprisingly gentle. You don't have to know right now, he said, his voice soothing. You just need to trust that I'm here for you, Emma. You and your son are safe with me. I won't let anything happen to you. The sincerity in his voice was hard to ignore. For a moment, Emma closed her eyes, letting herself feel the warmth of his words, the promise of security that he offered. She had always prided herself on her independence, on the fact that she had never needed anyone. But now, in this moment, she couldn't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, letting someone in wasn't such a bad thing. You're not like everyone else, are you? Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Vincent's lips curved into a faint smile, but there was a darkness in his eyes, a reminder of the world he belonged to. "No, I'm not," he said quietly. "I'm not like anyone you've ever known." Emma's heart beat faster, her mind racing with the possibilities of what this could mean. She had spent so long avoiding this world, avoiding him. But now, she was standing on the edge, unsure of what would happen if she took that first step. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Vincent stepped closer, his presence filling the space between them. "You don't have to do it alone," he said softly. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Emma's heart pounded in her chest, the weight of his words settling deep inside her. She had spent so much time fighting against everything, against him. But now, as she stood here with him, she realized that maybe she wasn't fighting for the right things. Maybe it was time to stop fighting and start living. "I don't know what this means for me," she said quietly. "I don't know if I can trust you, if I can trust this." Vincent reached out, cupping her face gently in his hand. "You don't have to trust me right away," he said softly. "But you will. In time, you'll see that I'm here to help you, to give you the life you deserve." Emma's breath caught in her throat. The promise in his words, the certainty in his eyes, it all felt like a dream, like something too good to be true. But as she stood there, feeling the warmth of his touch, she knew that she couldn't keep denying what she felt. She had spent so long running from the past, from the things that had always haunted her, but maybe it was time to face it. Maybe it was time to let go of the fear and trust in something, in someone, for the first time in a long while. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she whispered, her voice filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I'm ready to let you in." Vincent's expression softened, and he gently wiped away the tear that had slipped down her cheek. "You don't have to be ready," he said, his voice low and reassuring. "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you." Emma closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words settle deep within her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she didn't have to carry the world on her shoulders alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to make her take that first step forward. One step closer to a life she had never imagined. One step closer to Vincent.